All right. Hey, Rifters, how are you? Welcome to the show. Subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend. Uh, Very excited today. Uh, you know, I'm actually always excited when I do these interviews. It's one of the coolest things in the world. I get to talk to people, but my guest, not only am I interviewing one guy who's one of my personal uh he's one of my personal heroes in acting. Like, I just think he's a phenomenal actor and he's a great director. And I don't know if I'll tell him this. He could just listen. So if he does listen to this, he'll know. But yeah, like there's certain guys in movies that you just relate to, and there's guys you root for, and they're not necessarily the star. So I don't know, maybe because everyone knows, like, besides John Cusack, my favorite actor is Jake Weber. And everyone knows, like, one of my reasons why he's one of my favorites is because he's never been the star type of guy. He's just been the guy you root for. And my guest on tonight, he's one of the guys I root for in everything, everything I see. And I grew up watching him, and he's definitely in my top five favorite actors. He's just so great. He's so funny. I also don't think he thinks, or maybe he thinks it, but maybe he doesn't know he's funny. He's like so funny. And yeah, so I'm like so excited. Uh, and then the great you've seen him on Ghost. You've seen him in Oppenheimer. You've seen him, on Scandal. You've seen him in everything. One of my favorite movies is Taking the Hit, which is Taking the Heat. Sorry, which was it was like a crime. Like, he witnesses a murder. And it was like a crime romance type of thing. I thought it was so unique and so cool. I don't know. When you're a kid and you come home from school and you watch those type of movies, they just stay in your head. So yeah, I'm very excited to talk to the great Tony Goldwyn. And I just found out about this too. Uh, in 24 hours. Like, I've been talking to his team and stuff, and we've been flirting with it. And I owe his team so much, because this is seriously one of my top heroes. And just interviewing him is going to be so fun. And then I find out uh we're having a special guest in the interview too, the screenwriter who wrote this movie that we're to talk about, Tony Spiridakis. And Tony Spiridakis also wrote a movie starring Tony Goldwyn, and I think he actually directed it. I'm not 1,000% sure, but I'm, I'm gonna bet my mind. Actually, I kind of want to Google it because now it's gonna drive me crazy. But I'm willing to bet Tony Spiridakis directed this movie, and it was called The Last Word, or the first word, no, it was The Last Word. And I remember it had Michelle Burke in it, Tony Goldwyn, Richard Dreyfuss. I want to say who else? There's someone else in it. Yeah. So it's called The Last Word, and it was in 1995. And Tony Spiridakis did direct it along with Tony Goldwyn. There's going to be so many Tonys. I'm so glad my name's not Tony for this interview. Otherwise, we'd be the three Tonys. I might say that joke when I introduce myself because that's a funny joke. Anyways, they have this new movie coming out that is coming out today, Friday, May 31st, 2024. It's called Ezra, and I watched it last night. It's seriously Oscar worthy performances. It's just fantastic. And it really drawn to me because it's a movie that reflects me in both shapes. Just to give you the basic plot, it's about a stand-up comedian. So I relate to that because I'm a stand-up comedian, and he has a son with autism, and I relate to that because I have autism. And he takes his son and he goes on a road trip to LA to go on Jimmy Kimmel. Like that's just the plot. There's other, hopes and fears and stuff into that, but like that's basically just the elevator pitch. So it's a well done movie. It's so great. Rose Byrne is in it, Robert De Niro's in it, and uh Bobby Carradine's in it. Who else is in it? Rainn Wilson is in it. Whoopi Goldberg is in it. Um, Tony Goldwyn is in it. Um, it was written by Tony Spiridakis, and Tony Spiridakis is going to be on the Zoom as well. So it's going to be cool. I've only to my knowledge, I've only interviewed two people at the same time once. I have to go back and like really remember, but I do remember I interviewed Zach Ward with the writer of another film, and that was when, of course, Alan was around. For those you don't know, Alan Lee tragically passed away last week. Um, so yeah, this will technically be my first interview, interviewing two people at the same time. Very, very excited. Also very, very nervous because, like I said, I'm a huge fan of Tony Goldwyn, and this movie is just fantastic. And this movie made me a huge fan of Tony Spiridakis. So, of course I saw The Last Word, and but now like I want to see all Tony Spiridakis' stuff. So I'm like super, super, I think this is cool. Yeah. All right. I don't know what else I can say, but this is gonna be great. All right, guys. Subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend. I'm excited. The great Tony Goldwyn will be here, along with Tony Spiridakis, and it's going to be fun. All right, cool. Rock and roll. Oh, also, Corey Fry, the producer of the show, she wanted me to remind you guys to support us on Patreon. Yeah, she just texted me. She's like, don't forget to say Patreon. Support us on Patreon. So, yeah, support us on Patreon. www.patreon.com/RazorRifts61. All right, cool. Excellent. Nervousness. Okay, cool. All right, guys. Enjoy the show. Subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend. And don't forget, if you like this interview, please go see this movie, Ezra, now playing everywhere. Go buy a ticket. I promise you, this is going to be a movie that's going to change your life because it helps you understand the comedy business in a slight way. That's not really what it's about, but it does help you understand the comedy business, but also helps you understand or have more of an understanding of autism and how families uh, have struggles sometimes and how they try to work together for their children. And I think it's a very important movie. And yeah, you guys are gonna love it. I I I can't recommend this movie enough. Like this is like the movie Crash. You know what I mean? Like you have to see this movie. It's so good, so fantastic. All right, I'm gonna take a breather. When we come back, Reza Rifts on Reza Rifts. The great Tony Goldwyn will be here, along with the writer of the movie Ezra, Tony Spiridakis. It's gonna be fun. All right, guys.
You're listening to Reza Rifts with Keith Reza and Alan Lee, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Oh, hi, Tony Spiridakis.
Hi, Keith Reza.
How are you?
Is that, did I pronounce your name right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Reza, yeah.
Reza. Mine's Spiridakis,
Yeah.
I, but
I'm
you
lo
did that very well. Thank
uh,
you.
I'm letting the other Tony in too. So let's.
Okay, good. Don't let him in.
Okay, yeah. It could
Yeah,
just be.
don't
Okay.
it's just me. You don't need the other Tony, right, Tone?
Hi.
Oh,
Hey, Keith. How are you? Oh,
oh,
wait.
hi, Tony.
There we go.
Oh, hi, Tony. How are you?
I'm great. How's it going?
Good. Thank you guys so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Yeah. I was thinking about changing the podcast to The Three Tonys and changing my name.
No, don't do that.
No, don't do that. We have enough trouble.
Oh, okay. Cool. Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. I've never interviewed two people at the same time before, so I'm
Okay.
nervous, but I'm gonna do what I can. But I saw the movie last night, Ezra, and I thought it was fantastic. Like it. So I wanted to ask. This is a question for both of you guys. What's it like to write and direct an Oscar? Right?
Mhm. I don't know.
Who's Oscar? I
It's gonna be fantastic. I think it was the best movie, like one of the best movies. I thought it was so beautiful and touching.
Oh, thank you, Keith. That means a lot to us.
Yeah. And I really like it because it's about a stand-up comedian, which I am. And then so I experienced that. And then it's about a kid with autism, which I have. So I experienced both characters very it was very touching. So yeah, thank you for making the movie.
thank you, Keith.
Yeah. All right, cool. So so I wanted to ask you about the music in the film because I feel the music in the film also like plays a big part of the story. So Tony G, my man, right?
Yeah.
The director, like I was wondering like how do you guys like work together to find a music that flows with the script?
Well, the music was one of the biggest challenges for us on this film. Not so much, we have a few songs in the movie, sort of the soundtrack. Those came very quickly. But what was there's a couple songs over the driving sequences. There's a great Andrew Bird song and a song by the band My Morning Jacket, and then we had an original song written for the end of the film but the real challenge for us was the score. And there were two scores written for this movie. The first one, I realized we'd gone in a completely wrong. I'd taken the composer, Carlos Rafael Rivera, in a very wrong direction. I had felt the need as we were editing the film to constantly be reminding the audience that this was, quirky and fun and funny.
Yeah.
And so he wrote the first score, had a kind of quirky, goofy, eccentric quality to it, which was good, but it minimized it sort of minimized the impact and the depth of the story, really. And it was I didn't even realize it. It was kind of creating a sort of a crutch that didn't honor the uncomfortable spots in this movie and the sort of messiness of it. So I went back and I said to Carlos, our great composer, I was like, I sent you in the wrong direction. We need to rethink this. And so we came up with this idea of doing something more classically based, piano based. And I had this thought, he composed this very beautiful theme for the opening of the film. And I said, what you did is kind of like a fugue. And what if there's a few themes, there was a theme he'd written for the sort of Ezra's character, and a theme for kind of that had played in a lot of Max's stuff, and a theme that played in a lot of Stan's, the character of Stan's scenes. And I said, what if we sort of weave those together like a fugue in a piece of classical music? Because that's sort of like what's going on in Ezra's head and at Max's head. And that idea started to really work. So if you listen to the score of this movie, you can identify that. It's these themes that develop on top of one another and intertwine. And once we kind of stumbled on that, it kind of really supported the movie that we had made, as opposed to kind of diluting it. So that's a really great question, and something I struggled with a lot.
Yeah, I feel a lot of people when they like watch movies, they don't realize how big of an impact the music actually does in the storytelling too. You know what I mean?
For
So,
sure.
and then for Tony S, question for you. I wanted I wanted to ask you because your son has autism as well. So like you know this character, this movie was kind of based on that experience, and a lot of people don't understand. There's so many different types of the spectrum. You know, like it's like colors. You know what I mean? There's so many different reds and blues. And I wanted to ask you like how when you were writing the script, because I'm sure your son's sensitivity and the stuff that he likes and stuff had changed while you were writing it.
Oh, that's such a great question, Keith. That's exactly right. That's when people say, "You wrote this over 10 years ago?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Wow, that's a lot." But the truth, what you just said, is that it changed based on the changes that my son went through, right? So there were things that were happening at 6 which terrified me completely. He was 4 years old. He was nonverbal. He was high pitched screaming. He was biting, spitting. He was very out of control. And then that moves into a different phase, right? So then he's talking, and then it's like the comedian character Max says, and then he won't shut up. Like so
Yeah,
you go from like, hey, he's screaming, now he's talking. Oh my God, he's got to stop talking. It's like, and then it was like went into the stage of what he was saying, which was highly volatile, critical of people, trying to be like he was like a comedian. He would be like, he would just say things out of the blue. He'd get on an elevator and there'd be a woman and she was like really fussing with her daughter. And my son just was like, "You're just like a terrible mother. Like, leave her alone." Like, and it's like, "Oh no, he doesn't mean anything." Or the guy got on, I'll never forget, a guy got on and he said, he's very heavy, and he goes and he's on and he's in our building, and he's like, "What about Santa Claus? I think that would be good. You should play Santa Claus." And
yeah,
just, so on and on and on, and so many examples. So then another phase would happen, and and then it sort of culminated in the phase where I had a teenage son who was autistic, who's, I'll say, 13, let's say, at that. And that was also another scary part. Like, now he's a big kid, and it's now I'm father of a teenager who's autistic. So each of the stages had their own funny things and scary things, and that's what really attracted me to trying to turn this into a narrative film.
yeah,
And my son's spirit is all over this, and we have this incredible actor, William Fitzgerald, and his spirit just elevates all of the things that I was trying to do. He just made everything just come alive in a way, as well as all the other actors.
yeah. And like this is for both Tonys, because I felt William Fitzgerald did a great job because a lot like in Hollywood, I feel they get autism wrong. You know what I mean? Like they try their best to get it right, but I just feel like it comes off wrong. And I felt like this movie just got it this form got it pretty accurate, and I just thought that he was fantastic in it.
Oh, that's so great. I mean, really, I think that is, in addition to it being the script that Tony wrote, which was inspired by all the details of his own experience that he's been talking about, casting an autistic kid to play Ezra, just, William just brought himself to this. So it had all kinds of nuance, even though, Ezra's sensitivities are different than William's. He completely related to him, and there's kind of a level of just reality to the way William is in front of the camera that feels you can't, it's something that an actor can't kind of, I don't know, it would just be, it's just who he is. And there's a lot of uh, delicacy to William's essence, and therefore Ezra's, that I think just feels like authentic.
Yeah.
And I think that was something I saw in Dimitri because he started. Put him in little scenes along the way, and there's something I have to say about what Tony was just saying. If you're, autism is like being in your own world. Well, actors, and also there's something about autistic children. They just are who they are. They don't have ulterior motive. They're just super in their moment, right? Every moment they're in it.
Yeah.
Well, that's what makes a great actor, isn't it? Like,
Uh,
be in the moment. You're always hearing, directors say or teachers say, be in the moment. You're not in the moment. Well, with an autistic actor, they're in the moment. That's where they exist.
yeah.
And so there's something profoundly amazing with the right autistic actor, as we were fortunate enough, and like it was amazing to get William. He 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 it didn't shake him being in the scene with Robert De Niro. It was, he was in a scene.
Yeah.
That was what he was doing. Everything Tony and he talked about, that's what he was doing. He didn't get caught up in like, what does anybody think of me, or how do I look, or he's so centered. It was quite amazing to watch William work that way with all these incredible actors in it. It did not even register to him. It was just about doing what he and Tony had talked about, what he read the script. He has incredible parents who helped prep him, and so it was really a great thing to see.
Yeah, he wasn't
Him,
performing.
he
He wasn't,
centered us. He centered us in a way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
and he
Well,
was.
that,
Sorry, I was going to add that William doesn't really. He wasn't performing. I mean, I think that a lot of, and if I, as a neurotypical person and actor, if I were assigned this role, I'd be kind of like trying to get in on the details of what I think this person, might be, how they might be experiencing the world. And there's something performative about that. And William's whole thing, and what makes him such a fantastic actor, is he literally, he just is present in what's happening. And his father had this uh, advice for him that was great acting advice. He used to say, because he said, all you need to do is just be with Bobby. Just be
yeah.
with Bobby. Every day, you guys, most of your stuff is with him, and just be with Bobby. And William, who was, 13, turned 14 on the movie, was just, he would just tell himself that. And he was just present as himself. And we've been like, I've been on talk shows with him, like on Jimmy Kimmel and stuff, things that would you think would be highly pressurized for people and make most people terrified. I was when I first started doing them. William's just like, I'm just
Yeah.
me. He's able to just be
I'm
himself.
here.
Yeah, cool. It's very instructive to be with him because he doesn't try to be anything other than himself.
No, for sure. And like that's one of the beauty things about people on the spectrum. Like, because I was very nonverbal growing up, and my dream was to be an actor and then stand-up comic. And stand-up comedy actually, this is why I relate to this movie, because stand-up comedy really saved me. It really made me verbal, and I started going to speech therapy and doing comedy and stuff. And then I had a mentor, kind of like the Bobby character. So like it really touched me. And I think like that's the thing that people don't understand about people on the spectrum is they can do it. They just need that motivation to do it.
Yeah, I
Oh,
totally.
that's so beautiful. That's amazing, Keith. That's like, so to me, I saw little things in my son, and I put him in the Second City young teens troupe, because I saw that, and it was slightly disastrous at times, but it did so much to motivate his verbal skills. Just really a great thing to hear you say that. That's really amazing.
Yeah, and I'm
You know,
trying to answer without giving spoilers away, because I think this movie is one of those movies where you can't give spoilers away because everyone has to see it. It's going to change everyone's life, you know?
oh, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Keith, it's so funny being a comedian and on the spectrum. It's like, to me, there was such a natural connection between the two. I think comedians are asked to look at the world and through different lenses, really.
yeah.
And that gift, that's something my son had. And that was why I made that connection, actually. So it's great to hear you say that. It's really, really good to hear you say that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And then like I wanted to ask because like another people about like so like my big thing is I don't like being ignored. So like I rather you just tell me no or whatever because I think if you like I can understand that, but ignoring I don't know like there's a thousand things. I don't know if you're just busy or you're texting someone else. You know what I mean? And I think like in this movie, the hugging scene showed a lot how it was like getting out of his comfort zone and then he did it. So I thought like I wanted to know was that something that was very difficult to film or was he just because I don't know Williams comfort zones like is hugging really something he's uncomfortable with or did he just get into that?
No, William, it was kind of helpful to us because William's sensitivities are different than Ezra.
Yeah. Oh, did I lose the great Tony? Oh,
To people, he's very physically affectionate, um, and he doesn't have a problem with eye contact, but he has other sensitivities. So he really related to Ezra, but not it wasn't painful for him, so it kind of worked out
yeah.
uh, uh, for us.
Uh, I think
It shows what a good he had such an understanding that that was what Ezra was about, and he did that, and so he's a really great actor, because you'd think it was his own proclivities, but it's not. It's the character.
yeah. All right. And I want to respect your guys' time. Like they didn't tell me how much time I have, so I want to respect your time. Are we good for a couple more questions?
I
Uh,
think we have half an hour is what
Yeah, we have a half
how-
hour,
okay,
30
cool.
minutes.
yep.
Okay,
We've
cool,
got
cool.
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Excellent. So I also wanted to ask you like so Tony S when you wrote the script because I know you have a great friendship with Tony G, how do you like how do you pitch it to him where you say, "Hey Tony G, I think you should read this." Like how do you get the great
No, that's we've been friends for over 40 years, right?
yeah.
So I we have the thing where we share each other's work, like because we kind of came up together as actors, and so we have a shorthand about how we are. We you don't always allow everybody to just come and give you critiques and so forth, but from the very beginning that was all we could do because we were starting out, so we really needed the other person's input. Like, so if I did my acting, I would ask Tony to put his eyes on it and tell me am I making a fool of myself, or where can I make this better? And that was kind of how that relationship, right, that was a friendship that was very much we were syncing up about work,
Yeah.
and work was our language, right? That was a very much a part of the friendship, and the trust in that, you know, made the friendship strong. And but it never went away that whenever Tony was doing something, he'd say, "Hey, would you come take a look at this rehearsal or this? We're about to open. Come look at the show." And I felt like I had a very privileged place that I respected, because you don't take advantage of something like that, but you want to help the other person. I've made a mess of things for him at times, but that's another story. But the same is true. Like when I became a writer, I sort of moved out of acting and into writing. The very first thing I ever wrote, in fact, I had it on yellow legal pad, an entire first act of a film on yellow legal pad. And I literally sat in front of him while he read it. And his reaction to that 30 pages was made me a writer. I'm not even joking. It was like when he thought it was good, I was like, okay, I'll finish it now. And then that sort of set the tempo, I would think, that everything I wrote kind of went through Tony, and he wasn't involved in all the things. He was just being like my muse in a way, or my confidant and colleague, and that is reciprocal. So having him look at this was everything, and I knew, and I'm not kidding. It felt like when he 2.5 years ago or three, whenever it was, he read it and he called me and he said, "Okay, we're going to do this. Let's do this together." And I didn't even question it. It was the same way when he read those first 30 pages of my first film, and I knew I was going to finish that film, and that film got made. And so it was the same thing when he said that about this. I was like, "Oh my God, we're going to make this." Of course, the miracle is actually getting it made, but it's
Yeah.
not so easy, as Tony can tell you.
And then Tony G, I wanted to ask you, like, you directed it and then you also had a bit part in it. Like, is it hard for you to direct yourself, or is it like I'm just gonna let everyone and play off them and just think I'm the best? You know what I mean? Like, oh,
Not quite that. No, it's
oh,
actually it, I don't love doing it, to be honest with you. I've acted and directed a few times now. And I'd rather not do it. I didn't want to do this, but Tony and the other producers are going to talk me into it. And so I found it more of a distraction, honestly. I wanted to just focus on directing. But it was fun. It was fun to be part of the company and to be acting with these great actors. I mean, I love Rose Byrne and Bobby, and so it was fun to and De Niro obviously. But yeah, I kept having to pull myself out of what I really wanted to be doing, which is just directing. And sometimes you lack perspective, and it was helpful to have Tony with me because I sort of would hand it over to him when I was acting in a scene to make sure I wasn't screwing it up. Because it's also hard because when I'm acting, all of my concentration is on what I'm doing as an actor. So when I'm not in front of the camera, I need to be kind of just stay in my own zone so that I can keep my concentration. Because the one thing that's hard about being an actor, it's kind of like being an athlete. You have to do a lot of waiting, and then all of a sudden they're ready for you, and you have to do your thing and be
yeah,
present, good. And when I'm dealing with a billion different things as a director, and suddenly I'm the one who has to step in front of the camera, I find that it's a different kind of concentration. So I always felt like, oh, having trouble getting in the zone. So Tony was super helpful and going, yeah, you need to do that again.
yeah.
um, so yeah, but so it was fine. It ended up being fun, but I was resistant to doing it.
Yeah, I wish you were my lawyer. Let's put it that way. So, Tony S, I have one more question for you, and then I'll close with my last two questions for Tony G. But Tony S, I wanted to ask you because I assistant teach screenwriting, and here's what I tell my students is I say like on an elevator pitch, you should actually go in an elevator and pitch it, and like you should really like work that out because that's how I've never gotten like a real movie pitch meeting, but I've done so many of those things. I'm actually pretty good at elevator pitching, and I just wanted to know what would be your advice for my students who listen to this, like how to really snap that.
How to pitch
No, just like really quick, like elevator.
about writing. Just
Yeah,
I mean, only thing I would say about writing is rewriting. That's what I say that to all people who ask me. You can't tire of trying to refine the story that you built, right?
yeah,
And so it is building something too. I think writers have to be aware that there's a structure to these things. And to that end of a structure, which everybody goes with the 3-act structure, which I think is fine. You can always tell your students, here's the 3-act structure, and rules are made to be broken, right?
yeah,
So do with that what you will. And then the last thing I say is, every story, however many characters there are, it should all go down one drain. It should be about one thing. At the end of the film, your point needs to be crystal clear, and then everything goes there. And it's kind of, when that happens, it's a beautiful thing. And that's a hard thing, and it takes rewriting to get
yeah.
to that one drain. That's it.
I always like to say, so if you don't have an original idea, just copy an idea from a movie and then quickly say the Lego version.
There you go. You're a great teacher, Keith. I can see it.
Uh, Tony G, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for doing this and taking time because you're actually a big inspiration for me because you came up from a family that has a lot of like celebrityness and you've made it on your own terms, and I just think like that's a major big inspiration. So thank you so much for spending time to talk to me, and
Yeah.
yeah. And I was just wondering if I could ask you two quick questions about Someone Like You, because that's a movie that also saved my life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. So question number one. You did the ending that's in the movie, you shot a totally different ending, but you didn't release that. And I just wanted to know, is that your first experience where you shot different endings that you didn't, that you chose different?
Yeah, it's the only time I've had to do that. That movie, we went into that. It was a weird one. We went into that movie where the script still needed significant work.
Yeah.
It was only my second film, and the first film I made, which is called A Walk on the Moon, was that I worked on for like 4 years before we're able to get it made. So I'd really thought it through. And this one was, I was hired to do this movie. It was already set up at a studio and it was had a star attached. Ashley Judd was already attached to it, and they brought me in. And then, I worked with the writer on the script as we were going, and it was all kind of a moving train, and the ending never quite worked. And so we shot an ending that it just wasn't working right. So we went back and rewrote it after we'd edited the movie, and had to put a new ending on the film. And to be honest with you, I haven't watched that movie in a long time, so I can't quite remember
Yeah.
uh, why we made the decisions that we made. But it was pretty stressful, as I recall. It was because I left that project thinking, don't ever start a movie until you know that the script is working 100, as best as you're always going to be reinventing stuff. And we did it on this film, in terms of we trying to restructure stuff in the editing room and all of that. But, to the best of your ability, make sure that script is tight. Because
Yeah.
that I was kind of like, oh, we'll figure it out as we go. It's great, and wow, when the money is flowing and they're spending millions of dollars, you're just like, I was on the hot seat on that one. But
Yeah.
but I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, because like I've been trying to listen to as much interviews you've done, so I don't ask you the same questions. And you said that that was a film that you were kind of iffy about, and I just wanted you to know, like, I thought it was brilliant, and and from my eyes, I thank you so much for doing it. So even if your feelings for it, you really helped me with that film. So
Thank you. I really appreciate that. That means a lot. Now I'll go watch it again.
yeah. And then I wanted to ask you, there's a scene in there where Hugh Jackman's throwing dumplings. If he got three in a row, she has to do the dance. I wanted to ask you, did he actually hit all three in a row, or how many takes did that take? Because that's pretty hard to throw dumplings.
To be honest with you, I don't remember. Knowing you, he probably did. He's pretty coordinated. The thing is, I remember Ashley doing this amazing cheerleading thing that she came up with because she was a big basketball fan of the Kentucky Wildcats or whatever. So she and a cheerleader, so she did this incredible cheer that she was real. So I remember that, and I think in her underwear or something.
Yeah. But dumplings are, when they're cold, they're very slimy when you throw. So like I was like, it's But hey, I want to respect your guys' time. But last question is: where can folks follow and support you? Like a Twitter, Instagram, or
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at just at Tony Goldwyn. So come check it out and see all the fun stuff I'm up to. Tony, you on what is yours on social? I follow you, but I don't remember what.
Tony Spiridakis, but nobody can spell it, so I'm quite alone.
uh,
But I'm there. You just have to search for pterodactyls.
uh, Tony's. Thank you so much for making this, and thank you, Tony Goldwyn. Like a real honor to meet you, and I hope one day I could interview you guys again. And
We'd love it.
like, yeah. So yeah, thank you so much.
was great, Keith.
Thank you, Keith. That
All
was
right.
great fun. Thanks so much.
All
Looking
right.
forward to
Zoom
following
high five.
you. There we go.
All right. Bye, guys. Have a great day.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
All right. All right, guys. That was the interview. Subscribe, rate, review, and we'll see you guys next week on Reza Rifts. Big music cue play out.